from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased joining me, Peter Bonney, CEO and founder of Fastbreak. Peter, the way I love to do it, as I was explaining to you before we start the recording, is I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves, tell us more about you, your journey, your background, and what you're currently up to. So the floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, thank you very much, Mehmet. Pleasure to be here. So Fastbreak is my second startup. First startup was a procurement solution called Venderful. And in the course of that business, I saw that a lot of companies would struggle to respond to RFPs because we were helping buyers issue RFPs and manage their suppliers. I also had to respond to a lot of RFPs and security questionnaires as part of the sales process because we were selling to large companies by and large. So along the way, had the idea that we should try to automate the response process using AI. And once the tooling, in a post ChatGPT world, kind of made the natural language parts of that challenge feasible, I got really excited to do it. And once I'd exited Venderful, it was time to focus on that product. I already knew exactly what we wanted to do. And so that's what we're doing. Fastbreak helps large organizations and medium-sized organizations as well respond to RFPs, complete security questionnaires, using their own content, and automating the process with AI.
Great. I can relate to a lot of things because I was answering a lot of RFPs also as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start, by focusing on, the way you are trying to simplify this using AI, because you mentioned like the ChatGPT. So where do you see exactly the AI playing the role in streamlining, these interactions between, clients and vendors?
Oh, well, that's a really interesting question. We're taking, kind of a little piece of it here, which is, after the engagement has already happened, right? And you need to exchange these lengthy questionnaires where buyers have a lot of questions they want answered, whether it's about the capabilities of a solution, if we're talking about a software company, but it's not just software companies, right? Like health insurers answer RFPs, manufacturers, it's really any industry, services, marketing, it really runs the gamut. And so people want to know about the service offering. The buyers want to know about the service offering, and especially if it's a very expensive purchase. So they put out these lengthy questionnaires, and they're going to go out to multiple suppliers, right? And they want to compare them. They want the best information possible to do the best comparison possible. And that is a whole separate challenge. Like that's actually a hard process to do for buyers. But it's a hard process for sellers to complete these questionnaires, especially when you start getting into the hundreds or even thousands of questions spread across multiple domains and multiple divisions within a single company. So where the AI comes in is building a semantic understanding of all of the content in your company, and complex things like how that content needs to vary across products and geographies, because the way that, even for a single company, let's just say AWS, right? The way a salesperson at AWS would answer an RFP for compute in the Americas be very different from how they're going to respond to an RFP for document storage in Europe, right? It's different products, different geographies, different regulations, different laws, different content, all within the same umbrella. And similar sounding content, which is an easy thing for kind of a naive approach to get confused about. So we spend a lot of time building a semantic understanding of our customers' content. And then when they receive a new RFP, in some sense, that's kind of the easy part, even though that's really sort of where the magic happens from the customer's perspective. You've already built up the knowledge base. You've built, kind of this knowledge map of their content and their information and what they offer. And then you just do your best job to answer questions. And that just is like a tiny little slice of the whole process. And then from there, that's where the human effort really begins to kind of like jazz up your response, work with your collaborators, make sure that you've got everything the way you want it to be to put your best foot forward and not just answer the questions in a rote manner. But we help with all of that, and our goal really is to let our customers leverage AI in order to kind of make best use of all the humans' time, right? So that they're actually doing the value-added activities in the process. Does that make sense?
Now, yeah, absolutely. So now, again, RFPs close to my heart, you can imagine, right? Now, because you've also, your previous startup was in the procurement efficiency, right? So I want to talk about the elephant in the room here. So why we still have sometimes this inefficiency in the procurement process itself before, like, I go back and ask you further questions about, the AI and answering this from vendor perspective. So you've done this, Peter, yourself. Why we still struggle in procurement? Because, the other day I was thinking maybe one of the few areas which I still see, if I want to call them legacy, is how we procure, especially enterprise software. We've been doing it the same way for a long time. So what is stagnant there? Why it's not moving fast?
Cool. Yeah, good question. It's a challenging problem, and I certainly don't want to downplay it. I think procurement gets a very bad rap for, they don't buy things the way that sellers want to sell them, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing things in a bad way. They've got a very challenging problem to solve, which is how do you spend money efficiently at scale, right? Covering a whole range of spend from, making sure that like low dollar spend that adds up across the whole organization is controlled efficiently. So, you've got 10,000 people buying laptops. It is a challenge to make sure that they're getting the best price, that they're buying the right products, from the right provider, getting preferred pricing, that it's getting fulfilled in a way where there's not a million phone calls going back and forth to settle the invoice. And that is, its own challenge in procurement, procure to pay. And then, at the strategic level, it is also a challenge, and a very different challenge, to decide, like, we're going to buy an ERP system, say, or a CRM system. And if you're a large organization, that touches a lot of people, it touches a lot of processes. You cannot take that decision lightly, because you don't just have the cost of buying the software, you have the change management cost, right? I think that's where a lot of sellers, I think, are kind of maybe not empathetic enough to what's happening on the buy side and why it can be seen as so inefficient. Behind the scenes, there is this huge body of stakeholders that are going to be affected, like in the case of, enterprise software, by the purchase decision, and they all need to be consulted. There's a lot of risk that needs to be managed before you sort of pull the trigger. And the challenge is that, when you talk about enterprise software, you can do all the pilots you want, you can do all the demos and evaluations you want, get all the references you can, until it's actually implemented in your organization for your specific needs. You don't know how it's actually going to work out. You're just doing your best job to gather as much information as you can. So it's a hard problem, and I think they're just very, very focused on minimizing risk. And no one's come up with a better way to do it than going very, very slowly and asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's sensitive. I can understand. And because also no one wants to be put into a situation where he would be asked, hey, like, why did you choose this solution rather than that solution? Or why it looks like you did a favor for these guys more than the others, right? So no one wants to be, yeah, I can understand the sensitivity. Now, let's go back to what you currently do with with Fastbreak. So, and talking about, I've been there also myself, in B2B sales job. I did the SE job, I did the AE job also as well. So we often hear that AI, is coming to our jobs. Now, of course, we know the answer. It's gonna make us more powerful. But from the sales perspective, are you seeing AI replacing? Because it can take the RFP, for example, it can act on it, it can give insights. So where are you seeing, the role of salespeople, whether they are the AEs, even the SDRs, even the SEs? So how are you seeing these roles affected, with the rise of AI?
Yeah, that's the big question on everyone's mind, right? And well, what I'm seeing, I don't think those people are going anywhere soon. I don't see account executives going anywhere soon. SDRs, I think, are maybe a little bit more at risk. Here's the model I've got. The capabilities of these systems, even the best systems and the best implementations of the latest models with, the kind of, most robust workflows and sort of agent frameworks around them, they're really at the level of a highly skilled intern, right? And I think that's the thing to bear in mind. So work that could be done by an intern or by an army of interns, that work is definitely at risk of being replaced by AI. And so, SDRs to an extent, like, an entry level SDR without a lot of experience, maybe, not that great at their job, just kind of an average run of the mill SDR. Yeah, a lot of that work, I think, ultimately can be replaced by AI. Great SDRs, I don't see them going away anytime soon. And I think everyone's had this experience. When you've worked with like a top decile SDR, the difference between a top decile SDR and like a median SDR, it's night and day. And there's the reason why those top decile SDRs are so good is they really have mastered the human element of building rapport within 10 seconds of connecting with a prospect. And I just don't see AI going there anytime soon. And then, when you get sort of to higher and higher level activities, it becomes even less likely. What I think AI is going to do, and what we are seeing in our business, is that it is reducing the amount of rote work that you would push off on an intern if you had an intern or if you had 10 interns, right? And so the interesting thing, like, let's set, sales people aside for a second. Probably the people who you think might be most directly threatened by software like ours would be the people who are actually writing proposals and whose job is responding to RFPs. Because at large companies, there are entire teams dedicated just to responding to RFPs. You might think those people don't want to sort of bring in software like this because it's going to replace their jobs. In fact, it is the exact opposite. Those are the most enthusiastic adopters of our software. Those are our best champions, because what it does is it enables them to, stop spending time on things like, answering for the 100th time, do we encrypt our data at rest and in transit? I mean, the answer to that question for every single company in the world is yes, right? There's no serious company out there that does not encrypt their data in transit and at rest. And yet that question is never going away from an RFP response. And so, like, the proposal managers are tired of answering that stuff. They don't want to have to go ask somebody about, some technical question like that they know has been answered a million times. What they want to do is they want to focus their energy on the creative work that they're actually very good at, right? Like crafting the proposal, like taking a stock answer that an AI produces and adding in the value add that they have gleaned from context of understanding the customer to sort of shade like, okay, this is what we do, but let me phrase this in a certain way to address the specific problem I know that you have that the AI can't know or can't fully understand, at least. And that is the value add of these AI systems. It's letting people spend less time on the low value work and a lot more time on the high value work, helping them win more business.
Absolutely. Now, on the point of, these RFPs and, these questions, is it something that also you can kind of, I would call it modernize the old RFPs that these companies they keep using again and again? Is this something like also you focus on? I'm gonna give you an example.
Yeah.
I work in the data protection space, so we've seen like some requirements which are obsolete that comes again and again, and most probably because when these guys they prepare the RFP, all what they have done is they change the date, they change a couple of things, and then they copy pasted from the old template. So is this something also you can maybe highlight on as well?
Sure. So we're not doing that. But I'll tell you one thing interesting that I'm seeing. We are seeing more and more telltale signs of procurement teams and buyers more generally using ChatGPT to construct RFP questionnaires, which makes sense, right? The old wisdom with RFPs from sellers used to be, if we didn't help write the RFP, we're not going to win the RFP. Well, the reason why sellers were helping write RFPs at all is because buyers are not domain experts in the things that they're buying. And so, if you are an IT procurement professional, you're expected to have a general knowledge of a whole wide range of areas. Like you might have to buy managed DNS and database and cloud hosting, right? And you can't be an expert in all of those things. So when you need to buy a new managed DNS service, what do? You call up a vendor, say, hey, can you help me with this? Like I need to issue an RFP. I don't know what to ask. Help me out. Well, they didn't want to do that, right? They didn't want to have a vendor help them write the RFP, but the vendors were the experts they knew to go to. Nowadays, we are seeing more and more evidence that they're not going to vendors. They're going to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and they're leveraging kind of the expertise of the whole internet and large language models and the ability to synthesize that information and building up these templates using AI. Some of the telltale signs are that all of the sections kind of have about the same length. There's not a lot of overlap between the sections, as kind of in your example, right? Like when humans have built up these RFPs over time, you get a lot of repetitive questions, like the same question asked two different ways in two different sections of the RFP because you had multiple authors contributing. You'll see big changes in language, like the security section has like a very, very clear tone of voice because it was written by one person, and then the requirements section is completely different because it's written by a different person. We're seeing a flattening out of that, and that is 100% a sign that ChatGPT or some other LLM wrote the RFP. So definitely buyers are using solutions. We're not providing them, but they're definitely leveraging AI to help with that.
Yeah, interesting point on that one, and this is why I asked you, a couple of minutes ago about the process itself. So I know for a fact, and we used to, if a reseller, right, comes to us, a VAR, with an RFP, sometimes we used to deny even answering it because we said if we didn't write it, we will not win it probably. Which sometimes it looks like controversially. So you need some pipeline. You need also to be able to go and maybe last minute flip the deal to your side, right? And you need to have this visibility, but at the same time, for a fact that this customer got a champion, and the vendor got a champion, and the champion asked them to write the RFP in a specific way, which is again okay. So we know who's gonna be the winner. And the funny thing is, if it sometimes it happened, but of course, like customers are smarter and they know exactly, they can differentiate. So when they float the RFP and you put, let's say, unique points for you as a vendor, and then you get everyone answering yes, right? So yeah, we can do that. And it's like, this is why sometimes I think like this is something need some, I don't know, some breakthrough, I would say, in the way how the whole thing works. I understand the process, right? So I understand, like, yeah, of course, everyone has the right to spend time in the account trying to explain why they are better and then influence this decision somehow. But again, the way it worked from procurement perspective, I know procurement people, I love you so much, but I mean, like it sometimes it doesn't make sense to me. This is just my 2 cents on this. I think you want to say something, Peter.
Yeah, well, can I give you my kind of wild and crazy
sure
how I want
right.
this? Look, I've now been dealing with RFPs in one form or another for about 9 years now with 2 different companies, tackling it from different sides. My ultimate grand vision here, and the reason why I'm so fascinated by this problem, is I would like for the RFP to go away. That's my ultimate goal, to like make the RFP obsolete. That is what I want to achieve. And I think it is feasible leveraging AI in a way that it wouldn't have been 10, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago. It's going to require a lot of effort to get there. But I think that the ultimate, look, the reason why companies run RFPs is they want to get a uniform set of information as best they can. And they want to compare apples to apples as best they can. And they want to make an informed decision. The best way anyone's come up with so far to do that is to put out these lengthy questionnaires and have vendors respond to them. But as we've discussed, most of those questionnaires, most of the content in them is pretty rote. And so if you just had on both sides AI sort of contributing, where the AI on the buyer side says, okay, look, you want to buy, we'll go back to managed DNS. You want to buy managed DNS. Here are 200 things 200 boxes that we need to check in order to say yes, we can buy this solution. But here are the 10 to 50 things that are actually going to make a difference for your decision, right? The things that affect your business specifically. Like, why would you go with one business or another? Well, are you a media company, like a streaming video company? Or, is your managed DNS really just about kind of internal servers and you just have like a public facing marketing website, right? Those are very different use cases, right? And they're probably going to be very different solutions that serve your needs. No one managed DNS is necessarily better than the other. It's just what's best for us. So the AI can help focus the buyer on what matters. And then on the sell side, right, can just tell the AI, the buyer's AI, like, yes, we check all these boxes. And now let's let the humans focus in on the things that are actually going to make a difference. And instead of spending all this time on the 80% of the RFP that doesn't really move the needle, like, let's just get all the people talking about the handful of things that really matter and streamline the process. So like, that's my ultimate vision, is to kind of like turn this whole RFP process on its head and just like have people sort of asking each other, a small number of questions rather than a million questions.
Peter, you would not believe this because I just opened to see the date, April 9th, 2018. So that's close to 5 years ago. Yeah. I wrote an article on LinkedIn and they saying selling the technology to robot. And I was talking that at some stage we're going to see the robot selling to the robot, right? So of course, at that time, I didn't know it's going to be called GPT or something like this. I was calling a robot, kind of an AI robot. And it seems like we reached that, like, and we start even to see these videos where 2 AI models on voice mode that they talk to each others, and I think this is good because, see, I believe one of the mistakes that even myself I used to do is I used to assume that customers doesn't always know what they want, right? So like,
yes,
of course, but now more than any time before, they have the AI, and even if they don't know, so they're using AI. Kind of taking, all these ideas, best practices, all the knowledge of the world is in our fingertips. We used to say it for search engines, but now with AI and the deep search modes and, the thinking modes and all what I'm seeing. So, I ask, for example, I just got the access because I'm not on the higher tier in OpenAI, but I get the access to the search mode with ChatGPT. And I asked it for like a detailed report on something. And it took like, I think 15 or 20 minutes. And wow, like I get everything I want. And I'm sure now maybe a CIO or a CTO or even the CISO, like they will write something there. Hey, based on the trends that are happening, blah, 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 what should our priorities be? Who are the main vendors that we should be looking at, right? So I'm seeing this going to this one. But now, I want to ask you something, and this is something also you try also to optimize. Sales cycles in B2B are lengthy ones, and I can't tell you how slow they are here. For example, in a region like the Middle East, it's very lengthy because also you need to build the personal touch, the personal relationships. Now the question is how AI can help us. I know it cannot shrink it from, let's say, 9 months or 1 year to 1 month, but how it can help us in at least minimizing it?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question. And I'm definitely getting a little bit out of my lane here with my answer, because I'm involved in a tiny little bit of the sales process, but mostly I think I'm thinking about how I use AI as a seller, because in addition to selling, you know, software that falls under sales enablement in some sense, I am also selling and leveraging AI to become more efficient at it. Um, the ways that we use it internally, and I think this probably points in the direction of how it will impact sales in the near term. It doesn't. There's no sort of silver bullet that kind of, radically speeds up the process, but there are small efficiencies at each step in the process where overall it's cutting cycle times, and that adds up over time. So like little things like, um, we use Fathom as a call recording system, and one of the cool little features it has is that, once it's built up, when it's finished with its transcript, you can click a button to get a draft of a follow up email, and it's not always perfect, but I would say 90% of the time it is 90% good. Right? And so like, that means like essentially 80% of the time, like there's sort of like a, maybe a 20%, 90% times 90%, you get sort of 80% good, and 20% of the time you need to actually kind of redraft things. That's a significant time savings. It's like kind of like 80% of the time we're basically just clicking a button. There's the follow up. I don't have to have this long to-do list of like, oh man, I had, 3 sales meetings today. Now I've got to go back, look at the meeting notes, think about what to say, what are the materials I need to follow up with. Like I just click a button and, I've got my draft follow up and I can send it right away. Like I can't control a lot of things that happen in a sales process. I can control how fast I respond. My people can control how fast they respond. And so, little things like that really compound over time, particularly, I think, as buying teams are getting bigger and bigger, you're having to talk to more and more people. There are more and more individual follow ups to make after a sales meeting, after an email engagement. And AI and the ability to draft messages, to suggest content sources, to suggest actions, really helps reduce the cognitive load of having to think of each step, and that's the biggest efficiency we're getting from AI in sales, at least today.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe one thing I can think about. So I would put myself in the AE shoes
Mhm.
for a while. So I did a call, and then the guy asked me a question, and then I need to go to the SE and do something, and the guy he have to go and find some documentation, whatever. So I
Mhm.
believe like these things can be streamlined. The other thing is, probably I'm not sure if how I'm sure like AI would be able to help. I can't figure out how exactly. So
Mm.
for example, if let's say it detects that it's taking too long till we get, for example, some responses or something like this,
Mhm.
so probably the AI would have the insight. I'm not sure, maybe using some social tools or something like this. Hey, by the way, like you're talking to this guy which looks like he's not the main decision maker, like why you don't speak to
Yeah.
this guy, right, for example, or
Yeah.
have you tried, for example, to speak to the uh, line of business manager? I don't know.
Yeah. No, so like there, it's funny actually. I was just at an event last night where I met somebody whose company does exactly that, right? They look at
Oh,
Salesforce data and try to find, like, what does good look like, right? What is sort of your best sales processes look like, and what can we learn from that? From, what's the next action you should take? What's the next person you should involve? And then you just triggered my memory. Like I'm talking about like how, software and AI can speed up the sales process. I'm forgetting actually like our own product does exactly what you described, like the virtual sales engineer. Instead of having to wait for somebody to, somebody sends in a technical question, instead of having to wait for somebody or go ask somebody, how do I answer this? Just type it into the AI. Like it's the same content that you use to respond to RFPs. Just ask, we have a feature where you just ask a single question, like how often do we test our disaster recovery procedures? Like instead of having to go find somebody in information security or IT, just get an answer.
Absolutely, yes, it would be much faster. And the only thing they need to figure out,
Mhm.
because okay, if we're doing the call on a Zoom or Teams or whatever, fine, we can use any of these AI tools that
Yes.
can take notes. But and I think it's good we started to go back to face meetings and visit, so I can take notes on my notebook or even on my iPad or whatever. But
Mhm.
I mean, it would be nice to have also someone to listen with us and then take this, because I can tell you, every single sales guy's team is to find a way to automate these entries in the CRM, right?
Yes.
So, so if we can find a way to automate whatever the insights real time in the
Yeah.
CRM, I think like everyone will be chilled.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. So yeah, but I know like it's gonna be a journey, and what you're doing, Peter, I think it's a great advancement in the whole process, because again, it saves time. I'm biased, coming from the same background, loving technology,
Mhm.
AI, automation.
Yes.
So anything that would make my fellow AEs, SEs life easy, it would be very, very good.
Yeah.
Now, I want to a little bit like kind of shift gears and
Sure.
talk about the broader
Mhm.
AI thing. And you're into the B2B business and SaaS offering. So if you're in, couple of, I think it's been like now 1 month or so,
Mhm.
when Satya Nadella said like, okay, SaaS is dead. Not, he didn't say it like this way, but what's your take? This is your second company, Peter. What's your take on this? What's changing in the SaaS business?
Yeah, look, I will say it is a weird time to be writing software, um, because every software company, by necessity, now is an AI company. AI features have become so ubiquitous and so commoditized that if you're not including them in whatever product you're making, somebody else is. So every let's take that as a premise. Every SaaS company is an AI company, whether or not it's a foundational AI company is a separate matter. But like everyone's going to at least consume commercial models or open source models from OpenAI, from Anthropic, or from Meta or whatever. Um, Even though, or because every company is at least partly an AI company, we're not only consuming these commercial foundational models or open source foundational models, we're also in some sense competing with them, right? Because there is no process that you can build around one of these models that can't at some point in the future be built into the model itself. The models are getting more and more capable. And you don't have to look that far in the past to see an example of how, sort of little niche industries have emerged and then within a few months have been completely wiped out by a change in the foundational model itself. Like, as an example, when ChatGPT first came out, there was this little kind of universe of companies that got built up to enable ChatGPT to interact with PDF documents and with attachments and sort of ask questions of documents and understand documents. And then a few months later, well, that capability was just built into ChatGPT because, of course, it was going to be built into ChatGPT. And so that whole industry just went away. Right? And so I always feel like we're kind of walking in front of this slow moving steamroller, where, we're able to stay ahead of it, but there's a chance it could speed up and just like roll us over. And we could wake up one day and discover that actually ChatGPT just natively has the ability to complete an RFP. Um, and so yeah, it's an interesting and scary time to be in software.
So finding what we call defensible moat, right? So
Yes, much more concise way of saying it. Yes, defensible moats are getting harder and harder to find, I think.
yeah, but see, sometimes I meet a lot of founders. Of course, not. I tell them, guys, I'm not challenging you, but like
Yeah.
let's really think. If, for example, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google would be interested in getting into this business. Because what I feel, if you are into very small, by the way, the people who are in some niches, they are very safe,
Yes.
because like Google, Anthropic, like all of the other guys, they would not be interested in going, getting these customers, right?
Oh, sure.
And I tell them, like, don't forget, like, also these guys, they get revenue from selling the API calls that you do. So it's a win-win situation for them, unless you're doing something that like they would consider it as an existence threat to them, right? Which I don't think much people. So yeah, so here I tell them again, pivoting is key, making sure like you have the vision, you study it well.
Mhm.
And also I believe, like, speaking with customers as well. So some customers would prefer to deal with smaller companies that they are doing extremely great job, not only on product perspective, but in support, in after sales, because they say, what, like Microsoft would not care about us. We're just a
Yeah.
small customer. So I'm hearing this, but yeah, to your point, and one thing also, stop me is you said like every company is becoming an AI company. It reminds me when we used to say like every company is becoming a SaaS company or a software company
Right.
somehow, which
Yep.
is very, very interesting, I would say. Now, speaking again about being in startups and doing this,
Mhm.
um, so scalability today with in the AI age, how easy and or how more challenging it became, in your opinion?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think it's easier than it ever has been, right? Like, um, and we actually see this. I think there are the barriers to starting a company and to scaling it from an infrastructure perspective, right? The ability to serve large customers just in terms of demand, it's easier than it ever has been. I mean, the whole trend of the last, 25 plus years in technology, 30 years really going back to like the very beginnings of the internet, has been to make it easier for smaller and smaller companies to compete with larger and larger companies with less capital investment, right? Like, so first, the internet enabled the delivery of software and the delivery of content, through a free distribution channel, very easy, scalable distribution channel. You still needed to run servers and you still needed to have, physical infrastructure. Then the cloud revolution meant that you didn't no longer needed to build physical infrastructure in order to deliver your software and your services over the internet. You could just, rent a server for 30 to $100 a month from AWS or from Google. And so that further kind of reduced the barrier to starting a software company. Building advanced features and, like, say, AI type features required a huge amount of data. So you needed a certain amount of scale in order to do that. Now, with the democratization of AI and like these very, very cheap AI APIs, um, there's no barrier there either. You're able to leverage all of the advancements that these massive AI companies have produced very, very cheaply, and it scales perfectly as long as you get your pricing right, right? Like, as the demand for your product grows, hopefully your revenue is growing, and you're paying more, and it just kind of scales very naturally. So yeah, it's getting easier and easier to scale. At the same time, those huge companies that are producing the foundational models, like, they're the ones that control the data, and they have this big advantage. Like, I'm never going to be able to match Salesforce's internal data set, right? And so, like, there are certain ways in which I will never be able to catch up to them, and we're sort of relying on the continued existence of these APIs.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. So how this affects also these companies being able to find investors to support them.
Yeah, that's it's a really interesting time. I think I do a little bit of angel investing, and I will say from my own perspective as an investor, like, I'm not sure actually what I think about companies like mine, right? Like if I'm being totally honest, like, I mean, look, I'm very bullish on what we are going to accomplish in the near term. I don't know if, we are going to, if there's a path for us to become like a Salesforce scale company, right? Because, that's, there's so many things that need to happen between here and there. And, unless we are going to tackle the problem of becoming a foundational AI company, um, which is a very, very different business from, building business productivity software that uses third-party APIs, right? Like, I don't know if it's a very uncertain and unstable moment in software, I think. And I don't know what the future holds, and I don't know who the winners are. It's really, I mean, it makes it exciting. But yeah, definitely scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just today, I was speaking with someone. I said, look, uh, like maybe until last year, although
Yeah.
like we had all the hype, I could still kind of make some predictions. I can tell you like, okay, I'm seeing,
Mm.
but now, I sleep, I wake up, I see something completely new, breaking the internet, people talking about it, starting to build.
Yep.
And, I think I'm not sure if it's good or bad, honestly, but our attention span from
Mm.
even, I mean, not as on the personal level. I'm not talking about the social media, the reels, and all this thing. I
Uh,
mean, even from technology perspective and priorities, I'm
yeah.
hearing this. I'm hearing this from executives telling
Oh,
me
sure.
it's going so fast. Like today, we sit with the board and we talk about that. After 1 week, we need to change because things are changing very fast. So really
Yeah.
exciting times ahead of us.
Totally.
Um, Peter, final maybe words of wisdom, if you want to call it, some final thoughts, and where people can get in touch.
Boy, final words of wisdom. I guess, look, I don't know. Look, I don't know what's going to happen with AI. I don't know what's going to happen with software more broadly. I can say this, that, the lessons I have learned over the last, 9 years in software, are, they're old. It goes back to the lean startup. The same rules still apply. Fail fast, fail often, try things, keep failing, lean into the failure. That's how you learn. And no matter what is changing around us, I believe that those rules will continue to apply, and that is the ultimate path to success in software. So, yeah, that's what I think.
Where to get in touch?
Find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. My company posts on LinkedIn all the time, and yeah, I'm easy to find. Peter Bonney. It's not too many people with that name. Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
So I will make the audience life easy. So I'm gonna put the link in the show notes if you're listening on your favorite podcasting app. If you are watching on YouTube, you will see it in the description. Peter, really, really, I enjoyed the discussion. Like great insights, and I loved the prediction at the end. Yeah, there is no prediction because it's exciting times for all of us. We're gonna see how things will move. As I said, for the audience, they will find the links for the company and for your LinkedIn profile on the show notes or in the description. And this is how usually I end my episode. This is for the audience. If you just discovered our podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, please subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming again and again, our loyal fans, thank you very much. We are really making me, very proud because of you. The podcast now, for the second month in 2025, we are making it in the top 200 must listen, the Apple top charts for podcasts in multiple countries simultaneously. It wasn't happening last year and the year before because we were entering one country at a time and just every now and then. For now, every week we are in a new country, which is make me happy. And of course cannot happen without your support and all the you know questions you come to me, you suggestions you come to me to do, and the enhancement you ask me to do. So thank you very much. And also thank you for making the CTO show as one of the top 40 most listened podcasts here in Dubai in the business category. So thank you also for that. We are, I think, now on the 15th rank. So thank you again for all your support. And as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button. Share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.